My name is Tim Story, and you are listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show with my good friend, Jonathan Frederick.
What are you getting after? What seeds are you planting? What are you overcoming? Think big. Think even bigger. Take some risks. God's got your back. Go for it. Don't hold back. Don't ever have regrets in your life. Go fail. Go grow from those things. Live your life.
Your identity is not defined by your successes or your failures.
If you're not happy where you're at, you won't be happy where you're going. Choose to do the things that will make you the person you want to be, that will make you a better person next week and next year.
You're going to have to leave some things you're actually good at behind so that you can find what you're wired for, what you're born for.
Being a world-class entrepreneur is being in every area of life excellent.
It is the little things that are so easy not to do.
The best thing that you can do is assume the best in people.
I want people around the world to believe they can do something great with their life.
If I build the biggest business, but I destroy my physical body and I lose my health, I don't think that's success. While you're on the journey climbing to success, never forget the things that matter most.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the show. We're doing another episode of Kicking It with my main man, John, over here. He's the podcast host and executive producer of Heart Healthy Hustle, Triple H podcast. It's easy to find. I'm a subscriber. I'm excited for this conversation, man. We're going to have a little catch up here. You've been on the show already. I love your perspectives. I love everything that you put out there. And so I'm excited, man. Welcome.
Rob, thanks so much for having me back on, man. This will be fun.
Yeah, this is for sure a side of people that, side of me and side of you that people didn't actually get to see on the last episode because my interviews are so structured and, you know, it's just basically me firing questions that I ask everybody else. But today we're just going to do something different, man. We're just going to have a little catch-up conversation, man. We're just going to talk about anything and everything. So,
well, should we tell them what we're doing? On this call, we should tell them we got the coffee.
Yeah, we got the coffee. Yeah, we definitely got the coffee mugs going on. I got Tim Hortons. I was kind of schooling. Yeah, we were just talking about how Tim Hortons is like the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada. So I don't know. Do you guys have Tim Hortons down there? Probably not, right?
Something we don't have.
Yeah, I mean, I seen it in
Wawa. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. If you're listening to that, said, "Oh, Sheets, get out of here, man." Shout out to Wawa. And actually, it's named after the Canadian goose, I believe. Wawa, because the logo is a Canadian goose. Isn't that like how you say goose in French? I don't know.
It might be an indigenous thing because I know there's places called like Wawanessa up here. And I don't know if that has anything to do with that. But yeah, man, talking earlier about Summit of Greatness, this is actually where I met you. It was an awesome experience. We're talking about getting an Airbnb together and just going back down there and not missing out on the opportunities. I think is an important thing, right?
I agree with you. You know what we should do is we should get like 5 to 10 people and get like not a mansion, but like a really nice penthouse or something. Because once you have over 3 people, you could pretty much rent any kind of Airbnb and it's pretty affordable, like cheaper than a hotel. Yeah,
man. I think like the hotel stay is like $120 or $130, something like that a night. I think we can get a little bit for cheaper, but yeah, for sure. We're going to look into that. Anybody listening in and part of the Summit team, Summit squad, you guys can join in on this as well. Hit us up in a DM or something. I like luxury, man. I do. I really think that when you're in those kinds of environments, it really pushes you to strive for more and see the possibility of what can actually arise from, you know, this entrepreneurial hustle and this grind that we're kind of submersing ourselves in, right? So what's on the horizon for you, man? Like what are you looking at for the rest of this year? I guess we're kind of at the halfway point here. So
yeah, I'm just enthusiastic, man. I'll just be honest with you guys. This past week was really heavy duty, just taxing. And I've been really tired out this weekend just because of how much had to wrap up the month strong with sales and stuff. So it's been really fun, but it does take. I mean, when you cash in, you have to also cash out with some time. Like there's always it's that if you put a ton of energy in, you're gonna have to sleep more, stuff like that, which is okay. It's just frustrating. I know people who are driven like yourself, Rob. It's like, man, I don't want to sleep in. I got to get up and keep doing more. And it's like, yeah, sometimes you just. I mean, today I slept in way late, and I feel like a lazy loser. Like, and I have to make sure I have I don't know what the threshold's going to be in my internal mindset, but going to have to hit like 10 productive activities today to have to get certain things done that will make me feel like I didn't waste my life today. But in terms of the horizon, give you guys a brief glimpse into the reality of every day. Things are good, man. I can't complain. I have so many things I'm grateful for. The fact that we can connect on a call like this is amazing. It's all about for me is human connection, relationships, walking confidently in that direction. It's pretty powerful stuff to be able to link up. But for me, the horizon is I got 6 interviews right now booked. I was not slacking, but I had a lot, like I said, on my back for sales, and I had to put a lot of my focus in on that as I ramp that up. And I it's just like a lot of the energy that I typically put into guest acquisition was allocated to closing stuff. And that's fine. But I ended up having like a month to 2 months where I mean, the last 2 to 3 months, I haven't felt like I've been in a rhythm with interviewing, with interviews, with that. So I finally got a few interviews booked. And the first of those 6 was actually Emily Frisella's. Problem was, we were both online, but our computers wouldn't talk to each other. It just was the weirdest thing. I've never had it happen before. We're going to get reconnected. You know, she was understanding about the whole, and for those of you who don't know, Emily is she has a cookbook and she's an entrepreneur as well. She's a wife to Andy Frisella is her husband, and he's the founder of First Form Supplements. But this week, man, we got like 2 interviews coming up. Got to prepare. One of them is a dream guest. So I'm getting excited.
Yeah, man. I definitely saw that you posted that you're going to be interviewing Emily. Actually, I thought that was pretty neat. Andy's been a huge influence, I guess, in my earlier entrepreneurial life as well too. I listened to his podcast, and yeah, man. Andy, I love Andy's perspective on a lot of things. He's a very, very blunt, honest man, and I like that. He doesn't really sugarcoat anything, and I think that's important for people to understand, because there are people who sugarcoat things. There are people who make it seem as if things are easy when they're not. And Andy's one of those guys that he definitely made sure that I knew what I was getting myself into in terms of the entrepreneurial struggle and the entrepreneurial battle, and that it takes time. It takes a lot of consistency to be able to withstand a lot of the competition out there and the noise. You know, obviously she's going to be giving a different perspective because we hear from Andy. We never hear from, the people that are surrounded by him like all day, every day. So that would be kind of cool. No, that's awesome, man. I think your guest acquisition strategy is probably working because you've had some pretty big names on your show, and anybody kind of listening in can backtrack in those episodes and see what I was talking about. But yeah, man, I just wanted to talk about Summit a little bit. I met Jonathan at Summit here, and we connected because we see the energy, and I love the human connection thing too. So I think that's kind of why we got connected, and this is why I'm asking you back on the show and all this other stuff, because I mean, people think that longevity of friendship matters, and I just met you last year, and I feel like I could talk to you about pretty much anything, man, because you just get it, right? So it's kind of cool how like people that you meet on a soul level, it doesn't really matter how long you've known this person. Really, it's just more or less, can I talk to this person? Can he understand me? Can he hear me? Can he see me? I think Ed Milet's going to be there, right? He was announced as another speaker.
You better reach out to Lewis Howes and have him give you some residuals.
Yeah, for real. I love promoting Lewis just because his podcast definitely helped me out of the deep and dark place that I'm in, and that's kind of why we're here, right? Like we do podcasting because like it helped us on our journeys, and so we know that
still does.
Yeah, for sure. And now it's on a different aspect of it, because like now I'm a host and you're a host, but like we were on the receiving end of it at one point. Shout out to everyone trying to really impact the world on such a deeper level. There's a lot of like how to make money out there and how to get more sex and how to lose weight, but it's I think there's so much more to it, and I love the questions that you ask on your podcast because it attacks those questions. It attacks the deeper stuff, and you're a very spiritual guy too as well. So how does that play into your daily life? How do you kind of like balance all that out when you hear certain noise that doesn't really fit too well with you?
I'm focused on relationship. I try to be honest about ingestions. And by the way, mutual appreciation for you and your attitude about life. And I know you've been through some things, especially over the last few years, that you share with me. But also just for the fact that means a lot. That's literally why I do what I do, is to hear, from people like yourself and other friends who say something like that to me means the world. So I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. That's a personal struggle for me, man. Sometimes I don't feel like, for whatever reason, maybe just I'm kind of a bigger guy. I don't know if I'm a little intimidating for some people. I just feel like I have to work extra hard to show people that I actually see them for who they are and I accept them and I love them versus this big, confident, judgmental guy. It's not the case. I'm always smiling. People are asking me, why are you always smiling? I like that Grant Cardone idea of smile like you're crazy. If you're smiling, people might get annoyed, like, why are you so happy all the time? Or what's wrong with you? But it's better because when I just rest my face, I look like I want to kill someone. It's just for some reason, I guess because for weightlifting, like I have this intense focus. So I don't want to, I'd rather be perceived as like this crazy smiling ginger than some like huge jerk. So anyway, that's a lot about myself. Yikes. But yeah, I think assess your ingestions is what I try to do. So we can be so bombarded. I'll be honest, I was thinking about this. I'm upgrading my phone this week, which is fun, to the Google phone. I've been iPhone since I had a smartphone, which was the 5S. My point into saying that is when I first got this 6S, which I still have. Oh, that's my niece. See if you guys can see this picture. Very proud of my nieces. We're posing there. Yeah.
So cute.
When I got this phone, this 6S, like phones and everything, I mean, the technology and the speed on phones since I got this one have been so fast. The screens are big and clear enough to where you're tempted to just jump on there all the time, watch YouTube, watch Instagram videos, anything. Like use your phone for entertainment. It's way more fun because it's just easier, faster, nice screen. I never thought I'd fall into it, but I definitely have a slight addiction to my phone. It's very easy to fall into a trap of just constant consuming. And I'm a person where like I feel like I understand what matters in life. I don't have addiction problems, thankfully, but there is still like a pull and a desire to constantly be checking my phone. And if you're going to at least recognize and admit that you may have that pull as well, make sure that what you're following, what you're ingesting, assess all of that, whether it's music, whether it's podcasts, whatever it is, you got to assess what you ingest. And if you don't, you're going to be probably polluting your mind. So in terms of the question you had asked, I try to be careful to unfollow things as soon as I don't align with it. There's some people who I meet who are really cool, and then I'll see what they're doing is literally just scamming people. And I'm like, wow, really? Like that's how you're living your life? And it's a little judgmental to go there, but when you can see clear as day that I don't know their full operations, so I can't say it is. But when you can see, like you have a baseline understanding about what they're doing, you've talked with them, and you see, like I respect the hustle. Don't get me wrong, make some money, but make sure you're also helping people. And what I do is I try to disassociate with people who are just in it for themselves, constantly flexing. People just literally renting friends, so to speak, for their birthday pictures and video. For what? Are you trying to be a baller and pretend you've made it? And even at that point, what is that even appealing about that? I guess just notoriety or fame, or it's just so, to me, it'd be so empty to get attention for something you haven't earned. And it's not a true integral victory. It's just kind of a bought watch. It's like, cool, you bought the watch. That's great. But how does that add value to other people except for them to? And here's the thing I'm learning about marketing is you have to be willing to go a little bit douchey. I saw Billy Gina's marketing speak in person, and he basically challenged the audience to be willing to try some kind of douchey things, for lack of a better word, which just basically, like be willing to look like kind of a chotch, like a dork, like somebody who's a little cocky, or be willing to like go certain areas or maybe a gray area that's a little risky to risk looking kind of dumb or being judged harsher, because it does draw attention. And if really what you're trying to do with marketing is get more attention and more eyeballs, then you got to be willing to take the hits with the process and be willing to not always be accepted by everyone. But it's a journey, man.
No, for sure. I hear you, and I'm relating with you on so many other things. I too am addicted to my phone. I'll straight up admit it. I do a lot of work on my phone, but there's also other things that I could cut out from using my phone so much. It's crazy how we are so programmed to have it by our side. Just like you said, when it was like, oh, it's on my desk. I'm looking at my phone. It's on my desk. It's in arm's length of me because of, I guess you can call it an addiction, right? To be fair, piggyback off that idea of unfollowing people who are unpositive and stuff like that. Like when I first had Facebook, I would always see these really callous memes and really, really unmotivating stuff and people complaining in the comments. And so, once I started following all that stuff, the only thing that shows up on my feed are all these positive quotes and people, who are inspiring and motivating to me, that they show up. And so I think that's important, right? Like if we're going to use our phones all the time, every day, it's important for us to be discerning about who it is that we're consuming this content from. Like you said, like assessing the ingestion. Like I love that idea, and I love how you went there, because that's a really great tip for a lot of people, old and young, and anybody on the journey. I think it's important because it's so easy for us to just click something and get lost in the negativity of that post or whatever, what have you, right? It's actually really scary. Just reading some of it it's really eye-opening, but also it's very toxic to the things that I'm putting into my body and stuff like. But yeah, man, I love how you go there. What's like your best tip that you have for anybody who's trying to make the world a better place? Because you mentioned don't scam people, you respect the hustle, but I mean, help people. So like if somebody's sitting there, like what's like best tip that you kind of have for trying to make the world a better place, and how does that start? How does that look like for you?
Oh man. Well, again, going back to my faith, I mean, it's rooted there. It's totally rooted there. It just is. With that comes the truth that I'm loved, accepted, and forgiven myself. So I should then do that for myself and for others. And if I don't, I'm not being congruent with what I believe. Yeah, sometimes we don't operate or show up or in alignment with our beliefs and our values, which is when a lot of times we can become in a state of uneasiness or irritability or even depression, unfortunately, at times. Kind of a constant flux. I believe there are spiritual rhythms to life. I'm really cautious about how I talk and how in depth I talk about spiritual things, because yes, it is like the integral stuff that, it's funny, the stuff we avoid talking about is the stuff that typically affects us all the most, which is like, religion, politics. So I do want to get better at talking about that stuff with more intent and with more clarity in the way I talk about it. It's something I need to work on. I would say start with not just that self-love thing, but forgive yourself. Realize that you're okay. Realize it's all going to work out. Look, if I was talking to my 17, 18-year-old self, I was talking to my friend Kate Fitzsimons yesterday. She's in Australia, super awesome podcast called Okay, Now What? And it's for people graduating high school, going into college, into the young professional era of their life. Realize that you're okay. You don't have to work or do anything for proving yourself to others or making good impressions. All of that is wasting of your energy. It's funny because I have friends who are in their early 20s who are killing it, and they're doing better than some of my friends who are in their late 30s. I'm serious. There's a friend of mine who's 22. He's doing 10 or 100 times even better in every area of his life, just about, than another friend I have who's late 30s. And it's just not to like knock or praise either of them, but there's certain things, there's certain reasons. Like there are real reasons to that. And it has a lot to do with the way you choose to live and show up and fail forward and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And when you see a guy who's been, let's say late 30s or whatever, and he's been an expert in his field for like the 10, 15 years of last years of his life, but then you see a guy who's 22 who just understands how to reach more people, how to impact more people, and that guy's going to win every single time. But it's not to say that a guy in his late 30s can't learn those new tricks that are.
I was going to ask you what your opinion was.
No, for sure. I think it's really important to understand that like you can teach yourself new tricks, because I'm going to be approaching my late 30s very soon in the next coming years. And if I don't keep up with the times and keep evolving, keep growing, it's going to be hard. But, just going back to the whole spiritual thing, point out and highlight there, because for yourself, you've probably done all that work. You've probably realized how much of an important factor it is for you, not just on a faith perspective, but just an overall human being, love, that kind of perspective. So this is why I love having these conversations, because it's just, I can't get these anywhere else other than people who, are kind of submersed with this whole type of thing and trying to create a huge impact. So it's about what we program our phones to do. Don't let the phone program you. Right? It's what we program into our phones and use it as a tool, as opposed to something that's completely just reactionary, but tool, or we're just evaluating as it comes, which is, I find it's such a bad strategy.
Transition out of things that are not edifying or helpful. And that can even be good things. Sometimes you have to leave behind things you're good at and things that are good to find what you're best at. that's something I've learning to adopt, where it's like, start with a fresh slate. Like, it's okay. Like, hopefully you'll have tomorrow. No one's promised another day, but if you do get tomorrow, then it's all good. There's no set plan for anyone. Everyone's plan is so different. Again, I was speaking with Kate yesterday, talking about how my journey up until this point, which I feel like I'm completely confused about so many crucial things on life. It's okay. Like, learning to accept the fact that, it takes time. And I'm also fighting against certain beliefs and values, not even values, but just beliefs about the world that feel so toxic, but are also probably true, but also not letting that affect me, just accepting that it is true and kind of moving forward. I mean, at a core level, I think all of us have the same motivations and desires, whether we express those healthfully or not. That's why I love the focus you have on relationships and learning more about that. I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I had a quick question here because you're talking about clean slates and all that. It's okay for that. Yeah. But I mean, anybody who's like starting over, what are some of your rituals that you do that, has grounded you or not necessarily grounded you, but has made you the person that you are? Like, and it has to be either some non-negotiables or even some things that you can kind of put them on the side. What are some rituals that you've implemented in your own life?
The biggest things for me that I don't do enough of, because they are so helpful, is based on my beliefs. I believe that there is a God, and spending time in prayer and worship of Him is something that really changes everything for me, because there's more than just me. I'm not the be all end all. Spending time in prayer, it's next level. I can't explain to you in terms of grounding. There is no second. That's it. Like, that is the thing. Can say there's tactics and there's things that I do as well. Staying in the gym, exercising releases serotonin. There's a lot of, I didn't come up with this term, spiritual warfare. So I think that there are forces of evil and darkness that are constantly trying to influence our thoughts and our mind and affect our mind to make us doubt ourselves, make us doubt our abilities. And honestly, the greatness that I believe God, I believe not that we are God, but I believe that God puts things in us, like, which are considered gifts, which then are also oftentimes called greatness. I think to actually actualize that in our lives is an obedient thing to do. I think it's actually the right thing. And I say that because I've noticed how much more fulfilled I feel when I actually do my best to do that versus just ignoring it and being like, no, I don't have what it takes. That's someone else's thing. Like, who am I to do that? I realized my friend, I was speaking with her, hopefully, Chipotle? Restaurant.
Course, yeah.
So we were at Chipotle.
Burrito place.
So we're at Chipotle. She's like, I was like, I just can't wait for it to be my turn. This was last year. And she looked at me and she's like, what do you mean? It is your turn. Because I was thinking about my two older sisters, my brother-in-laws, people who are 5 years ahead of me who have money and are living their dream and having kids maybe, or buying the nicer house and like doing all these things and taking trips and enjoying their life. And I'm like broke. I'm like 25, 26. I'm like, I just can't wait for it to be my turn. I want to buy a motorcycle. I want to live in a better place. Mm-hmm. I want to have a rich friendship circle. I want to be able to travel when I want, how I want, with who I want, and not have to think about it. And I just can't wait for it to be my turn. And she looked at me and was like, she's like, it is your turn. And I was like, you're right. And she's like, it's your turn. And she basically challenging me, like, don't you see what you're already doing? I had launched probably 60 episodes of my podcast at this point, still feeling not held back, but kind of not giving myself full permission. This was 2 months after a friend of mine, tragically, he was no longer with us. And, all these things kind of adding up to realizing that it's actually my belief that I need to be living all out all the time, and not to the detriment of my own health. That's part of the reason I do what I do with the Heart Healthy Hustle, is to focus on how to be comprehensively healthy while going all out, while pursuing the vision for my life. Believe that it comes from God as well. So I could be wrong about the way I'm interpreting things. And that's why I'm always, like you asked, so I'm telling you, I think that time in meditation with Him and in prayer is so powerful. And so many of us don't even realize it. Whether you're agnostic or you don't believe there's a God, or you think, wow, how is there a God if there's so much evil in the world? So you don't want to believe there's a God. Whatever your stance is, I believe that spending time, even with yelling at God, I'm not recommending do that. I'm just saying, I believe He wants to talk with us. I believe He wants to give us knowledge and wisdom. And I know that. And I've seen it in my own life so many times. And then that's why you might hear some people say things like God's favor. And I think that not that you should do it for yourself or for your own benefit, but it will benefit you. I think starting on a fresh slate in terms of there's people who, maybe your dad left when you were a kid. Maybe he was abusive. Maybe your mom cheated on your dad and you grew up in a divorced household, whatever it was. A lot of us are dealing with wounds that we never really addressed because we just were forced to adapt and be watchful and learn how to live with these horrible things that happened to us in our upbringing. Mm-hmm. And once we can start acknowledging there, and that's why people say, oh, you have to go to those places, you have to go meditate and go to the deepest, darkest places of yourself. For me, I'm just going to share it because it's changed my life. For me, that happened when I was actually willing and finally recognized that I needed to do this because as much as action as I was taking, as all these things I was doing, I still needed to go to that dark place. But the coolest thing for me is that I don't have to do that alone. I can hold the hand of Jesus while I go there, and I can let him look at that and heal it. And the word redeem is so powerful. Take things that were meant for bad and allow him to show me how to use those for good things and how to benefit others. And hopefully even just talking about it like this is kind of doing that for some listeners right now, because it was so scary, dude. I remember still exactly the house I was in, the address, the seating position I was in. I was sitting Indian style on the floor. I was listening to music to kind of go there. I was closing my eyes for like 20 minutes straight. And I remember just sitting there and just facing the darkness and the scary and like the really broken parts of my life. And it's really strange because you can't put a name to that darkness. It's just like a void. It's like all the things that the chasms and the crevices and the dark pits that we kind of house these wounds in, where you never want to go, because the second you kind of look in that direction within your soul, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. You just want to open your eyes and just go for a run. You don't want to think about it. A lot of us will use escapism, whether that's with drugs, whether that's with alcohol, whether that's with, or just working really hard. A lot of people will convince ourselves that we're doing a healthy thing by just overworking ourselves and staying away from it. There's all different types of escapism. It could be productive, not productive. But for me, that still is like the most grounding thing. And I'm glad you asked that, because I need to go there more often. That kind of set off a bit of a chain reaction in my life, and I'm so grateful and appreciative for. But when it comes down to it, I need to be, doing that more, and where I'm just in surrender. There's a really strange paradox or dichotomy here. I don't know what the right word is, but like realizing that it's not about me, but recognizing because it's not about me, that I have a duty to then live up to the fullest of my potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
Yeah. Because I realize that it isn't about me and that it's so much bigger than myself, but then simultaneously realizing and recognizing the gifts that I do have within me and actualizing those as like an act of like a duty, like an ethical duty, I believe, and therefore yielding a more fulfilled, joyful life. That's not the entire scope of what I believe, but that's a large part of how I proactively, how I stay grounded.
For sure. That's a great ritual I think anybody can incorporate, even if you're not religious. I think meditation, you can achieve that too. But I'm just curious, man, like I'm a firm believer of God as well too. And I actually have conversations with him. And I was actually going to ask, this is going to be a part 2 question, but like the first part of this question is like for me, whenever I was going through a rough time or whatever, I felt as if I only needed to speak to God when I was in trouble, or if I needed something from him, or if I need, from now I'm actually more mindful, and I try to make the conversation when I'm actually having a good time and say, thank you, God, and be grateful.
Exactly.
Right?
Thank you.
Right. I've learned to do that. But the second part of this question is like, how do you talk to him? Is it more of like a conversation, or is it something that you structure? Like, how do you have these conversations with him?
Man, so this is getting super deep. I feel like because I've been so focused on the question, what else can I do? What else can I do for the last 2-3 years of my life? I haven't been in enough surrender and enough submission to just listening and hearing. There's a verse that says, be still and know that I'm God. That stillness is more than just sitting, more than just turning your phone off, more than just sitting in a dark room or whatever in a floating tank. I think that being still and know, that KNOW is something that I don't know how to do that yet, but I think it's innate. It's something that we're all designed with inside of us when we're born. There's something called the Imago Dei. Every life has value. And I believe we all carry that within us, regardless of what you believe. I believe that everyone carries the Imago Dei, but it essentially is saying we all have equal value. every human life holds an intense and insane amounts of value, carrying the image of God. Not to say I am God, but to say we're carrying that image or reflection, and we have a ton of value. And I honestly, I can feel this from people, man. Like when you give people a hug, if it's a true hug, like there are certain things that like, you can't explain it in words, but like you just know. And to answer your question, there's not really, I think that is the key. I think I'm glad we're talking about this again, because it's helping me to almost recalibrate parts of my approach to this, because I think that's the blueprint. Is the actual living word of God. I think the scripture is not just words like an old book with stories. I think that it actually has spiritual energy, and it's powerful. It's really powerful. So if you can learn how to kind of use that and submit to it, no one likes the word submit, but I'm telling you, it's for your own benefit. It's powerful, man. But
you mentioned obedience, right? And I think I find that's a more powerful word than submit, because I think God, he always says, like, you should trust in me, put your trust in me, put your faith in me. It's really being subservient and obedient, and not really just trying to make your own way out of it, but just understanding that there is a path for you, that there is, his intentions are good with you. Most people don't think that, right? Most people.
And shout out. I want to interject before I forget. Shout out to Lewis House for having Lindsey Sterling last year, because when she said that about God wants us to do well, she shared a story about how she got embarrassed on America's Got Talent, and her dad, I think he died, right? Yeah. After her performance after she won like a huge amount of victory in her life, like notoriety and money, and like she finally hit it big, right? It was after a huge fall, a huge embarrassment, a huge deep valley in her life. And her dad looked at her and basically said, like, I'm so happy and love you and proud of you. You got to see now that like God wants you to do well. He's not out there to get you. He's not out there to like make you embarrassed or feel ashamed. It's the opposite. It's love, acceptance. He wants you to know that he wants nothing more than just a relationship with you, to talk with you, to love you, to have your life work out for good. And people have trouble with that. And I understand, like, it's like, well, how's that possible when there's, all these evil things? And it comes down to faith. I don't have an explanation, because I know how, life can be so incredibly dark and hard, but it also can be so beautiful and blissful at the same time, different seasons. And accepting that is life-changing, because then you kind of give yourself that permission. You're like, oh, I'm actually supposed to do well. It doesn't mean it'll be easy. It doesn't mean that like it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's actually quite the opposite. You'll probably be ridiculed for even what I'm saying. A lot of people are probably tuned out by now. Some people are really resonating at a deep level who are resonating with this. Some people hopefully generating curiosity.
Curious, man, what's the best compliment you've ever received? What's the best compliment that anyone has ever given you? Not even from your mom or your dad, or like, come on, there's got to be something, man.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like stall or like focus on myself and like, oh, what can I think of? Like, I really like, nothing is coming to mind. I know there have been things. I guess I just don't really embody people's feedback of me. I like being my own person. But in terms of compliments, I guess like what you said earlier in this interview about, I can just tell that you see me and that I can kind of share anything with you. That is the greatest compliment that I can honestly get. And whether it's expressed in words like you did, Rob, or if it's expressed in somebody approaching me and saying, whether it's on a DM, whether it's in an email or in person at an event, wherever it is, when they say something like that to me through their actions as well, like, hey, can I talk to you about this? I'm really trying to decide what I'm going to do, or I've already done this and I feel like it's not fulfilling me. Like all these things, when people come to me and want to talk about that stuff, it is literally like, it just floors me, because I'm like, who the heck am I to have somebody like want to talk to me? It's just, it's really, it's crazy, man. That to me is.
I feel you on that. Just to go a little bit deeper on that. I truly think that, when you have those talent, like when you have that and I call it a talent, right? Like it's a talent. I think it's hard for people to gravitate towards an energy and just tell it like it is. And it's only a certain amount of people in this world, I find, like, and I truly think it's the healers of the world that can embody this. But yeah, man, I truly think that's something that it was from my heart, that didn't really just come from out of the air, just to kind of.
Did you say that based on like how we've connected before, or was it that combined with the stuff that I'm putting out more so?
Yeah, so it was a combination of both. I think, after the podcast interview that I had with you, you really spoke to me on multiple levels. I think one of the biggest ones that you taught me and inspired me with was seeing the good in everybody, and being able to not just focus on the negative things of people, which I indubitably do sometimes, right? I mean, I'm human. I look at the very negative things and I would hold those things against other people. And that's one of the things that you inspired me with. And, a combination of all the other content that you put out there as well in your podcast. But really, it was our connection that we had, the conversation that we had at Summit. Man, I reciprocate and I see you, and so that's what really, really got me acclimated to you, man. And the whole faith thing too as well. Like I'm a God-fearing man, and so that's one of the things that I don't normally talk about openly as well too much on my podcast or to other people. I guess for the fear of being judged, but also being put in a box as well too, because I completely understand that people don't believe in God and that they're completely atheists, and I get that. I guess my heart is so big that I just wanted to help everybody, and I'm just like, I just want to like drag them into my world, despite whatever there is, and I don't want to offend them. But I think that's one thing that I admire about you is that you're constantly always telling people about your faith. You're always constantly being grounded in that, and I think that's something I should learn from you as well, as just be more forthcoming with that. I mean, that's kind of why I asked you about the prayer thing, because like I do have these conversations with him. I mean, I remember one time I got arrested and I was sitting in jail, the holding cell, and I was having this conversation with God. I'm just like, look, you just let me out of this situation. I guarantee you, I was promising him all these things, but I felt so bad because I always talk to him when bad things are happening. But, literally, I'm just going to share this story real quick. But
that was a good point you mentioned, by the way.
Thank you. I'm just going to mention this, but like literally as soon as I said, amen, thank you, God. It's like, thank you, God, amen. The freaking holding cell door open and the guy's like, you're he's my witness right now. And that moment when that clank of that door just sounded, I was like, oh my gosh, right? It was just the most, it was the most crazy experience. I've never actually shared that with anybody but you. I've never really talked about that either, but
don't lose your train of thought. The idea that will offend people is kind of a good thing, because if you're never offended or you're never challenged, how are you going to grow? So anyone who's listening to this who may be like, oh, well, I'm all about growth and mindset and personal development. Are you really? Or are you really just kind of into jerking off your own ego, for lack of better words? Because, or like we look for things that we align with. But I'm talking to myself too here. Like I need to challenge myself so I can better understand and learn from and talk with people who have completely opposite beliefs as me. Because if I truly care, I need to be able to understand and articulate, not just be empathetic and say, look, I also the sense of like growth is about challenge. It's about pushing. It's about resistance and overcoming it and learning from everybody, whether that's somebody you agree with or disagree with. Like I went on a trip to Portland, Oregon in March with a group. We went out on the streets and talked to people for like a week straight, man. We just learned from, what do you believe? Can I share with you what I believe? And I did that as like, again, as an act of obedience. Like if I'm going to say I believe this stuff, I need to be taking more action. I need to be doing this every day to learn about people, love them, show them that I accept them regardless. But I like hope that they would also be curious about what I'm saying. And we met people who absolutely did not believe that there was a God. We met people who were into like dark things, like like witches and all this other stuff. And we met people from like all different things who are living all different ways of life, gay, straight, bi, all these different things, and every ethnicity, every background, you name it. And I mean, it was such a moving experience because, it puts you outside of yourself. My point in sharing this is that I hope that people can see I'm coming from a place of like moral, actual, like living out what I say, I believe, not just here to talk to people, but also with them. And that's powerful. I like that with word versus to. I think a lot of people are always, even when you give to homeless, are you saying something like best to you or like hope this helps or something? Or are you coming with the energy of like, we're all in this together. I hope this helps you and I hope to see you up here soon. You know what I mean? There's a total difference actually helping to say something like, you're a human too. I see you. I think that's something that if I was given that, I need to also give that. That idea of feeling scared. I get what you're saying, Rob, in sense of, and correct me if I'm off base here. I feel that too, dude. It's a pressure of you don't want to give people an opportunity to put you in a box that they think what you said means. So like you say, oh, I'm a man of faith. I believe there's a God. So some people are automatically fitting you into a box, a vague box that, maybe you're short-sighted or maybe you're not tolerant or loving or empathetic. Maybe you're judgmental. Maybe you're angry person. Like people have different conceptions and it's based on their life experience. So I get that completely. It's hard because we also are in a time, in a day and age, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well, where it's more important than ever to openly share what we believe confidently, because that's honestly going to create a polarity. Like we're saying we're scared to do, but that I believe, and this conversation is really helping me to realize this as well. We need to be okay with creating polarity, not for the sake of conflict, but for the sake of somebody needs to stand for something. Honestly, I think you'll generate more curiosity and help more people just for the sake of he really believes what he says. He's not saying that of like a place of I'm right and you're wrong. It's actually quite the opposite. I am so okay with what I believe that I'm willing to be judged for it. And I hope that it generates curiosity within you as well. So you can get to this place of peace, inner peace, like true inner peace. Not to say life is easy, that you won't go through ups and downs and really dark times, but to say that there is an inner peace there. And I do live in joy. I do live with more peace and happiness than I ever did before. And I think that polarity is actually something that will, honestly, it will create more of a loyal following. If you are building a personal brand, you got to stand for something. And I think that's why people like, I actually don't agree with everything with this guy, but I do agree with some, is Jordan Peterson, even someone like Joe Rogan, he has his beliefs, and then you kind of know after you watch a few of his podcasts what he stands for. And think of Jordan Peterson, why is he such a polarizing figure, is because he's standing for truths. And he even wrote a book on what he believes are like the 12 truths or 12 rules of life. And I think a lot of people
12 rules to life, the antidote to chaos. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are really just wanting something that they can call truth right now. And there's a lot of people saying this like, oh, is that your truth? And I think that that's a really dangerous thing to go down that rabbit hole, because I believe that there is a truth. I don't think that your truth, I don't want to say this in a mean way. The way I look at it, if someone says, oh, is that your truth? I can respect and I can respect and appreciate people living their truth, of course. But it's like, what does that mean? Because what if your truth is to kill people and think that that's a good thing? And then some people are like, oh, you're just going way off yeah, but there has to be a definitive line of there can't be what is true for you. Because if I said what's true for me and I had a desire to go do really bad things like rob banks and then use that money to hire prostitutes and promote sexual slavery, like that is not good. Like I think people can understand, at least with that moral compass we're all born with, whether you agree or not, is like, okay, well, I mean, living my truth, like standing up for what I believe in and being grounded in my beliefs and loving people. And like, that's my truth. And my truth is to really be myself. I can appreciate and respect that, but I don't want to, again, it's like, I need to learn how to articulate and understand better before I just talk.
Dude. You're definitely speaking to me on this one right now, because a lot of the relationship stuff that I study actually requires me to, I guess, stand in my truth. And there's a lot of things that I've been uncovering, and I've been sharing that in the best way that I can. And it's been polarizing me a lot. It's been people have been, but they've been admiring the fact that I'm actually coming out with more of this stuff. So to give a little bit more of a deeper context, you asked me my opinion on the polarizing thing. And I think, yes, the air in the world is thin enough for us to be able to stand and stick with whatever it is, and without the care, and not take it too personally. And one of the things that I've encountered in my work, or so to say, my coaching, is that there are some truths to women and men intersexually. There's some dynamics there that we're, I guess, kind of glazing over a little bit and not really trying to get to the root cause of it. And I've had to, read a lot about evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology to really wrap my head around this, because I was at a complete disbelief when I, followed some guys. Like there's also some other men called Rollo. His name is Rollo Tomassi. He wrote The Rational Male, and they all come from the same type of truth that I've been trying to put out there into the world. Where, there's some certain things that, like I said, that happen in terms of mating strategy and intersexually, dynamically. Like we are drawn to certain things and we're repelled by certain things. Why I had to uncover this is because I work with a lot of divorced men, and the question is constantly like, why are these women So the statistic out there is 80% of women are initiating the divorce. And so the question arises, like, why are the women doing this? Why do women want to leave their husbands and leave them with child support and break up the family? And why is this happening? And so, uncovering all this, I've had to, go into places that really deep and dark places of the internet. Like there's incel communities. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but there's communities that teach these guys how to manipulate women into having sex with them. And it detracts like from the world's value. Like it's not helping the world become a better place. And it's actually it's making these boys think that it's okay to manipulate these women and treat them like an object and objectify them. And I guess like to circle back without going into too much detail, because that's going to open up a can of worms, right? It definitely will. Wow. I tried to, stand for them and stand for the truth of why these things are happening. And you're right. It is, the more I speak about these topics, the more people are coming to me and asking me about these questions and getting my opinion about them. And it's not the most popular opinion. I'll tell you that right now. Something that Jordan Peterson is notorious for doing is standing ground on unpopular topics and things like that. And it's kind of why I respect him a lot as well, despite whether I disagree or agree with him. And you're right. I think other people as well, leaders especially, should, in the matrix, right? It's like the red pill and the blue pill. It's either you go back to your old blue pill life, or you can take the red pill and gain truth. There's people in there that offer a purple pill. They put a blue and a red together, and they kind of mask the identity of what each one is. And that, to myself, I found myself doing that earlier on in my career. And so one of the things I've been really, really intentional about is understanding that a lot of my logos have red in them, because I'm trying to awaken people, let them know these really deep and dark truths of why things are happening, and why there's these men manipulating men out there, women out there in pickup societies, or on vice versa. On the flip side, why are feminists out there duping these rich men, old men, into marrying them and then divorcing them so that they can get half, right? There's all kinds of situations that are arising inside of relationships that it's better for me to kind of stick to my guns, as opposed to, like you said, and create a little bit of controversy, because I really want to stand for the people who don't have a voice, who agree with me, but they don't have the balls to kind of say it. Yeah, I guess that's just my 2 cents on that, man. I truly think the air is definitely thin enough for that. They like Instagram and Facebook, they know what you're doing. They know that you're trying to promote something. They know that you're like marketing and doing all that stuff, but they're like, I guess, limiting the organic reach, because it's like, why am I not getting, because we're going to be sitting here like, oh, why am I not getting the results? Like, I'm using all these like tools and I know when to post and I know what hashtags to use, but why am I not getting that here?
My posting schedule is Monday is an interview. Friday is a solo episode. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll post a highlight clip from a past interview on Wednesdays. Those seem to do really well. They're about 2 to 7 minutes long, depending.
Sweet. Okay. So long form on the Mondays. Okay, cool.
People love to hit those up on Tuesday. Monday, you'll get that initial bump, but then Tuesday, it's the most downloaded day of the week, typically. It's just kind of that day where people are ready to listen to a podcast. Monday, you're still riding the weekend. Tuesday, you're like, all right, I want to like pass this commute time or wherever you listen. Sometimes it picks up again Friday and Saturday as well, in terms of people activity.
It's cool. The reason why I ask is because I'm going to try to wrap up this podcast. It's probably been about just under an hour here, so that's good timing. But I do want to channel people to your podcast. I mean, if people are listening into this up until now, they're podcast listeners. So I'm recommending your show to people to look up on either on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening to this right now. Just go to Heart Healthy Hustle, and you'll find Jonathan's podcast there, and just hit the subscribe button. Hit some the past episodes, the past interviews that he's been putting out. See which ones acclimate to you, and then go leave him a little 5-star review. It's like, podcasters, it's tough out there, man. It's not easy to try to bust through the noise and make relevant content.
It is. It just takes time. It depends how you look at it. My perspective is that it is fairly easy. It's just it's a kind of an algorithm, right? It's like, if you believe in what you're doing and it has real value and you're doing it for the right reason, the missing ingredient is patience. I believe that.
So powerful.
Yeah, dude, I really believe it. That's why I try not to talk about it like, oh, it's so hard. Because I kind of do. I kind of want to say like, oh yeah, you're right. Like let's like all support each other, and that's important. But I like to also talk about it like, no, it's not impossible. It's just going to be time. It's like hourglass. Yeah.
I was actually having this conversation with a 16-year-old kid who's into podcasting, and he's like, I guess, stuck on the instant gratification thing, right? And I think you just hit the freaking nail on the head. It's like patience, man. I don't know why I never use that word, but I use words like consistency and just waiting for like what's your end goal. Like if it's a big goal, it's going to take a long time, and so you just got to be consistent with it. And so I guess that's the whole idea of it, right? Consistency wins people over. I think loyalty comes from somebody who says they're going to show up when they show up, right? And so,
it's true.
Yeah, man, I definitely feel you on that. So anybody listening in, all right, you guys want to start a podcast? This is how these are some of the things that we think about, right? And these are some of the things that you're going to think about on your podcasting journey as well, too. So
and if you guys are considering checking out my show, The Heart Healthy Hustle, topics that I go over frequently are things like how to market your products and services, or using podcasts to do that, personal branding in 2019 and forward, failing forward, taking messy action, living wide open. I do that through personal solo episodes of almost journal entry. Talk about those almost as like a journal entry. And some people really like those episodes. But then the Monday episodes, I interview people like Ed Milet. We've had Jeff Hoffman. He's a billionaire. We've had Emily Frisella's coming on. Jordan Harbinger is going to be on. Evan Carmichael for round 2. He does those top 10 videos on YouTube. Who else?
Love him. He's from Toronto as well, too.
Yeah, dude. Evan's
always doing Q&As. Yeah,
dude,
always doing
Q&As. He got the neck brace thing and he's still doing his videos.
Dude's
absolute savage.
He's savage.
Like, dude, take a seat. Like, just breathe. And he's over there with his freaking neck brace, and he's like,
no,
10. Yeah. No chill. Go at it. It's awesome.
No chill. Yeah, it is awesome, man, for sure. You've had some really big names on your show, man. That's why I think a lot of people need to listen up and tune in as well. You're not just giving these big influencers time. I think your perspective is gold as well, and that's kind of why I wanted to come have you on the show and just talk about anything and everything. Yeah, man, I truly mean that. Is there anything that people don't know about you that you want to tell them about?
Yeah, for sure. I'm 27 years old, guys. I turned 28 in August. I'm a podcasting professional. I'm curious student of life. I'm sharing my journey on my show. I use it as a mentorship call for myself and use myself kind of as a conduit to you, the listener, so that if there's a question that you might be like, oh, ask him that, I try to go there every single time. It's for my fellow proactive young professional. If you ever feel alienated or you're just so driven that people are like, dude, chill, why are you going so hard? Why do you do this? And you have real reasons. For me, I have my background, I have my beliefs, I have people who are counting on me. I also have friends who have passed away. There's so many things. There's so many whys, including there's so many reasons why I do what I do. And I recognize that it is the right action steps, whether or not it alienates me or not. There are people out there who are doing similar things. And this podcast kind of tries to, I bring them to you to say, hey, here's what happens if you stick the course. Here's what's going to happen. Like you have Ed Milet come on, talk about his journey, and you're like, oh, I'm okay. Everything's going to work out. I don't need to be feeling bad on myself because I'm lonely that I didn't decide to go out to clubbing tonight with everyone because I have a bigger vision. And it's not to say you're better. It's not to say they're better. It's not to say that, but it is to say stay the course. You're not alone. You're not alone. If it sounds like you're driven young professional, you're committed to being the best version of yourself, you're not alone. Come visit our show. You got Rob's relationships here. It's an amazing show, Rob. Keep doing what you're doing. It's really powerful. I could tell you have such a sincere heart because of what you've been through. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, man. That's why I agreed to come back on and connect with you. I always enjoy this. Tell them what I said on do you remember what I said on the email response when you approached me with this?
Yeah, love this booking now. Yeah, you jumped on it right right when I sent the email to you. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that, man. And yeah, join the Facebook group. He's got a Facebook group. I'm gonna link that up in the show notes as well too. Join the Facebook group. Is like,
thank you, man.
Yeah, I think I'm a part of there. You guys can continue the conversation with both of us in here if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he asks people, if you're part of the group, he asks you what questions you want to hear from the future guests that he has on the show.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to get on that.
If you want to connect with me personally, go to my Instagram and DM me. It's at Heart Healthy Hustle. Cheerios with hustle. Heart Healthy Hustle. Email me as well if you want. It's Jonathan at thehearthealthyhustle.com. That's my personal email. And then I also would say, if you have a question for me about podcasting professionally, using it for brand recognition, personal branding, or just taking action in the direction of your vision, submit a complimentary one-on-one call with me through the link hearthealthyhustleshow.com. I don't know if you know what a link tree is, but it lists links out. So the top links are like your listening platform. You just click that if it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes. And then in that same link tree, there's going to be a link to schedule a 15-minute call for free. We can chat. So I'd love to connect with you guys. And I really appreciate you, Rob. So thank you.
Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.